Ben, let's come back to you then and more on Tony Blair.
Yes, absolutely. That was a great little piece there on Unit 8200, Mike. Thanks for that. There were two terms that jumped out at me. One was AI treachery, because I think that sums up really nicely a lot of what we're seeing here. And then also this word precision, which keeps on reoccurring. And actually, it came up quite a few times in the Tony Blair event. I'm just going to talk through a little bit about what's driving this. So we talked about the Blair's desire to, or his recommendation that we should be embedding advanced technology into the heart of the state. And he does that because he's appealing to the success of this technology in the private sector ultimately. And we're pointed towards three examples by him: JP Morgan Chase. So they employ over 2,000 AI experts. Amazon have reduced their order processing times by 25%, so made their operations more efficient. And Goldman Sachs tells us that $1 trillion is going to be invested over the next few years. Ergo, because those three organizations are doing things, that means that everyone else, including the British government, has to jump on board. I'm not sure I follow the logic, to be honest with you. Now, he also talks about the transformation of the market. So just looking at the top 15 global companies in 1997 when he was first voted into power versus the top 15 global companies in 2024. Obviously, the top companies, really the top 5 to 10 companies, are all technology businesses. And he is presenting this as some kind of reason for us to embrace these technologies. There's absolutely no discussion whatsoever about whether any of that has been good for society, the health impacts of mobile phones on kids. Any of that stuff is completely ignored. It's just purely about top line numbers, size, and growth. And it's all being waved through with recommendations from people like Bill Gates, Andrew McAfee at MIT, and Ray Kurzweil at Google. So these are the big beasts, the big names that Blair's reaching out for to build his case for change. And he's actually directing the Labour government. This is in his own words. He's advising Labour to talk to Google. Now, this is a huge public-private marketplace, and the delivery is going to be handled by big technology companies. And Debbie Weinstein, who is the MD of Google in the UK and Ireland, was actually in the crowd. I heard someone did a little write-up saying that she was there. So, if you're in government and you want to talk to Google and you're at the Tony Blair event, then, hey, look, Debbie's just over there in the corner. You can go and talk to her. This is absolutely stitched up. It's all global. Yes, obviously, this is the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. And as we've discovered and discussed, it's all about building an international marketplace. So this was from one of the climate sessions. And by the way, I suggest anyone with any interest in what's going on internationally, and specifically here in the UK, go and watch all of these sessions, right? They are talking about you. They're talking about your tax money. They're talking about our society. They're talking about their plans for the future. If you want to understand what's driving Labour, what that word change actually means that apparently everyone's voted for, this is where you need to go and look, right? And a lot of it is to do with the City of London, ultimately, right? This is about driving economic growth. It's about making money for big international investment funds. You can see on the left-hand side there, it's about driving global investment, so leveraging the City of London's expertise to develop non-standard finance mechanisms. And then also to create, they say there in the second point, to design a national wealth fund to support international as well as national investment. And that national wealth fund was actually announced by Rachel Reeves on the same day as the Future Great Britain event. Unbelievable coincidence that, don't you think? And Mark Carney's been incredibly effusive about that fund as well, and the fact that it's going to allow public and private money to come together to drive change, not just in the UK, but across the system, and to unleash global innovation. Yeah, and it's not just in climate, that is absolutely everywhere else. And I think we need to understand the UK, start to understand the UK as a platform for testing out these new programs for transformational change that are then also going to be implemented internationally. It's really, really important to get into the guts of what's going on here. And it is completely global. This was a remarkable statement from Ilan Gur, who is the chief executive of ARIA, which is the UK version of DARPA. He's got £800 million of taxpayer money to invest in advanced technology projects. And his view is that the UK, it needs to look outward. Don't look inward. Don't look to your own people. Don't look to your own capabilities. Don't look to your own heritage and your own history. You've got to look elsewhere for ideas. right? What a remarkable thing for someone like that to say. And it was also echoed by William Hague, who has basically been working hand in glove with Blair for the past year or two, really providing the kind of right-wing counterpoint to Blair's left-wing message, right, to provide the kind of integrated uniparty perspective. And he's basically saying that in the future, we need global solutions, not national solutions. Absolutely emphatic. And that comes through in everything that we've heard from him. Really interesting session by a guy called Chris Miller, who I believe is from Stanford. And this is the only one that hasn't been put online. And it may appear in the next few days. But if it doesn't come up, then I'm about to tell you why. Because he very interestingly described artificial intelligence, microprocessors and microchips in particular as the kind of the playing pieces in a big geopolitical game where the American intelligence agencies view access to those technologies as a way to exercise political control over vassal states, right? So actually, if you play nicely with American intelligence, then they will let you have access to the limited number of AI chips that exist out there in the market. Really amazing, bold statement to come out with, incredibly cynical, but very unsurprising given the forum and who was in the room. And the other thing that was really interesting here was he, whether he meant to or not, revealed the fragility of this entire technological paradigm, because this is a global supply chain, globally networked, with a tiny handful of countries who actually pull the strings. So 90% of these microprocessors that run the AI systems come from Taiwan, for example, which, as we know, is a contested region. The Chinese believe that they own it. The Taiwanese believe that they don't own it, and could potentially be invaded at some point in the future. And apparently we've got to base our entire system, governance, economy on the back of technologies that are running on this supply chain. I think that exposes us to an extraordinary level of risk, completely unacceptable, really. We also had there Matt Clifford, the chairman of ARIA, who was effusive, effervescent about the potential for AI to transform absolutely everything. He was really excited about the work that he's been doing with UK government, and actually talked about people leaving organizations like DeepMind or Google or OpenAI to go into roles in the UK government. UK government is now seen as a hot place to go and do tech work. I think we should all be really concerned about that, to be perfectly honest with you. He talked a lot about the actual physical transformation that's going to be required in the nation, the fact that we've got to build these data centers everywhere, right? Because the AI systems run on huge amounts of data. Where are those data centers going to exist? They're going to be in your neighborhood. They're going to be putting these all around the country. A lot of that links into the net zero grid that they're building. He also talked a lot about the massive increases that we've seen in the past decade in the power of these systems. So we can see that between 2014 and 2024, the power of the systems has gone up by 100 million times. So an enormous increase in artificial intelligence power over the past 10 years. But he then goes on to say, in the next decade, we will reach human-like general intelligence. So it really just begs the question to me is, well, if we're investing all of this money, all of this time, all of this energy in building human-like general intelligence, what's wrong with the human-like general intelligence we are currently surrounded by, i.e. us? We're already here. Why do we need to build this new technological paradigm in order to replace something that already exists? And actually, if human-level intelligence doesn't currently exist, and it's much lower. So this was Demis Hassibis saying human-level general intelligence is the goal, but we're not even at cat-level intelligence yet. We've got a long way to go. Why on earth would we be embedding this into the heart of our state and our economy? And particularly when you see things like will.i.am sitting on stage trying to do a demo of an AI chatbot, and the whole thing goes into a complete meltdown. Something's wrong with this thing. John Chappelle losing his mind, the interviewer on stage. And actually the whole thing just, it looks like it's destined to failure.
Well, we can hope.
Yeah, we can hope. But I'd say to our audience, UK column I think, and Ben in particular, doing some really good analysis on what's happening here. If you're looking at Tony Blair on stage, of course, remember that he is the puppet master for Starmer. So why are we bringing Blair back into the spotlight? It is because almost certainly this is the man who's driving our new Prime Minister and moving his arms. Whether he can actually influence his brain, I don't know.